One of the things I love about One Rental at a Time is A, we have an amazing following, but B, we also have an amazing collection of contributors, folks who are clearly go-givers and want to give back to the community. We have one such CEO, Dana Dunford of Hemlane, that is one of those folks and continues to say, Michael, whatever you need, we are here for you. To that example, she is hosting an event inside school today at 10 a.m. about how to find a great tenant. Dana, thank you for being here each and every week and all that you do.
Great. Well, thanks for having me back on here.
Absolutely. What I want to do, folks, is just pull up my school real quick, just to give you a feeling of what is coming. But then, more importantly, we are going to talk about things that maybe we would love Dana and Hemlane to talk about in the future. So, Dana, if we go down to the end of the month here, we can see we had April Crosley on yesterday. You're going to be on today with Hemlane. We'll highlight how to use the platform to find ideal tenants. We've got Matt, the mortgage guy, talking all things mortgage tomorrow. We've got Bo Eckstein talking small business, and I am doing my monthly Q&A on Sunday. But why don't you tease the audience? What if they join the 10 a.m. or watch the replay, what are they going to see?
Yeah, definitely. So just to begin with, we're an independent company. So we
Mhm.
are not part of any big company, any of the big listing websites. And so for us, our goal is to make sure your life is easier. And the reason that I bring that up is if you find a great tenant, you're going to realize the management is so
Yes.
passive.
It's so different.
And
Yes. Yes.
in placing so many tenants, it's really interesting because I've always found that sometimes when something doesn't feel right, and you're like, hey, the data tells me it's okay, it checks out, it passes my criteria, there's almost some sort of objective criteria that you're missing with it.
Mm.
And so finding an ideal tenant is your goal. You also have to use objective criteria, and there's fair housing, and fair housing continues to get stricter and stricter. And so you just have to make sure that you're following the law, and it's there for a good reason. It's to make sure you're not discriminating. So from that perspective, like we're huge fans of fair housing.
Me too.
But a couple of things with it, and I'll give you kind of a teaser on what you're going to see later today. The first is quantity and quality of leads.
Mm.
And so our goal is obviously to get you the quantity, but also the quality. Make sure that the leads that we're bringing in are truly leads that when you reach out to them, they're going to respond, they're going to set up a showing and all of that. And we'll explain how we list it on more listing websites than anywhere else to make sure that the reason you didn't find a tenant is not because a tenant didn't see it. It has to be something else. It's your price. You were too restrictive, like you didn't allow pets, all sorts of different things. So that's the first part of finding and placing that qualified tenant. Um, the second really just has to go through your process and how you run a process, because I always say the more data points, the better. And because you're getting into a 12-month plus relationship, you want to make sure that it's not like, hey, met Michael for 10 minutes or never met him at all, had him fill out just an application. He looks like he has great income. Let's go ahead and sign the lease. You almost want to within that, and you want to shorten the time period. You don't want Michael to run off to another property, but you want to meet him as much as possible and really get to know him and have many more objective data points. And that has everything to do with how you run the screening process. Like I always tell people, there's companies out there that run background and credit checks on every tenant. And the reason they do it is because they make money off background and credit checks.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
in their
Yeah.
system, the goal is to say, run a background and credit check with every application. Ours is not that, because a tenant is going to get pretty upset if they pay anywhere between 45 to, some of these I've seen outrageous, like $75 for a background and credit
Wow.
check for the application fee. Um, they're going to get pretty upset if you say no, I'm sorry, you're not qualified, and I've selected someone else. And so in that process, it is really important to really run it very well, but use the criteria as you go along to make sure you're making the right decision, and all tenants who are interested in your property understand where they are in the process. And so that's part of that, finding that ideal tenant, following fair housing, and making sure that from that perspective, you don't make any mistakes. We're big fans, obviously, of single family homes, Michael. These tenants stay for like 4 to 7 years.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like it's the length of some marriages, right? And so, from that perspective, you
So
just have to think about that because I've always found, and I've made a lot of mistakes in the past 10 years with our own tenants. And it's always interesting because always I look back and I say, something seemed off and I should have dove more into the details and the data on that. I really should have, like, even with like past landlord, I was talking about this yesterday with actually someone on Hemlane going through the process where the past property manager was like, nope, we just decided to terminate early.
mm,
And obviously she was really trying to follow objectively what she could and couldn't say, but there was a little bit of a red flag of like, well, why would you be okay with terminating early? And then we found out why later. And
mm,
so I think all of that kind of stuff of really making sure you're set up for success is really important. So even if you're not looking for a tenant right now, I mean, the goal is to make sure that you learn something from it and that you walk away not being scared. I mean, there's a lot of scare tactics that companies use. It's not to scare you, it's to educate you and say you can find a qualified tenant, objectively go through the process and make your life a lot easier. And that's why even with property managers, I always tell people, when you're working with a property manager, or any sort of property management company or platform like ours, you don't almost want to work with the new ones
mm,
because they haven't gone through that for a
mm.
while. I think Michael, when you and I met, you kind of dismissed me the first couple of years too for that, probably for that sheer reason. And so it's really to make your life easier because I find that if you have a great tenant and it's really passive, you're going to buy more properties and more properties and more properties. But it's not to say that you didn't do that work up front to make sure that objectively you have all those data points.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Again, one of the things I love about what Hemlane does is, again, you're part of the community. You're doing these monthly sessions. One of the things that I was wondering about if we could do maybe next month is you have so much data about rentals and vacancies and turnovers and things of that nature. I wonder if the team might be open to the idea of doing a school session just about the data where maybe students can
Yeah.
come in and say, hey, tell us about what you're seeing in Atlanta or Dallas or something like that. It might be fun to kind of take my concept of buy box and take it with all the data that Hemlane has, not to mention, Hemlane 101 and, those kinds of things. But I think there's just a lot of opportunity to do more and more stuff together inside school. What do you think of that?
I love that. I think that's a fantastic idea. And Josh on our team on the data side will get excited about that.
Very, very cool. Well, Dana, I appreciate you. You are amazing. Thank you for doing the school thing today. If you can, record it because I will post it for replay.
That we definitely will. Excited to have the one rental at a time community on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.